Jason never thought his second year of college would start like this. He had been expecting another regular semester filled with lectures, coffee-fueled nights, and the constant struggle to find clean laundry. Instead, he found himself staring at the email that changed everything. Due to housing shortages, the university has partnered with the Galactic Exchange Program. Some students will be paired with interspecies roommates. This is a historic opportunity for cultural growth. Please welcome your assigned roommate with respect. Jason had read it 3 times thinking it was some kind of prank. An alien roommate. That was something out of movies, not dorm life. But the school was serious. And now he was standing in front of his small campus apartment, nervously bouncing his leg, waiting for his new roommate to arrive. The hallway was quiet except for the faint hum of lights. Students passed by carrying boxes and suitcases, chattering excitedly, but Jason's stomach churned. He tried to imagine what kind of creature would step through that door. Would they be huge? Insect-like? Would they even breathe the same air? Then the door beeped and slid open. She walked in. Jason froze. The figure standing before him was nothing like the monsters from his imagination. She was tall, easily over 6 feet, with long limbs that moved with elegant grace. Her skin shimmered faintly, like smooth stone catching the light. Her hair, if it could be called that, flowed like strands of liquid silver, and her eyes, large, round, and glowing softly, seemed to look through him and yet gently at him at the same time. Jason realized he was holding his breath. The alien girl tilted her head, studying him. Then she spoke, her voice clear, smooth, almost melodic. "Are you Jason Carter?" Her English was perfect, but each word had a strange rhythm like music hidden inside her tone. Yeah, that's me," Jason said, his voice cracking. He cleared his throat, feeling heat rise to his face. "And you are?" She placed a hand on her chest in a gesture that looked both formal and delicate. "My name is Lyra. I am honored to share living space with you." Jason blinked. He had expected difficulty communicating, maybe even a translator device. But she sounded almost too human, though every movement of hers reminded him she was not. "Well, welcome," he managed, stepping aside. "I hope you don't mind messy humans." For a moment, Lyra's serious expression cracked, and she let out a soft laugh. The sound was light, like wind chimes. "I think I will survive." Jason smiled awkwardly, suddenly feeling the tension lift just a little. Lyra carried only a single sleek case, unlike the piles of boxes most students dragged in. Jason watched as she set it gently near the desk on her side of the room. Her movements were precise, controlled, as though every step was part of a dance. Jason scratched the back of his neck, trying to find words. "So, you've traveled pretty far, huh?" Lyra looked at him, her silver eyes catching the dull dorm light. "Yes, my journey was measured in light years, though for me it felt like only days." Jason let out a low whistle. He had no idea how to respond to that. His longest trip had been a 6-hour bus ride to visit family. There was silence for a moment. Jason shifted nervously, afraid he might say something offensive without realizing it, but Lyra broke the silence first. "You are nervous," she said simply, not as an insult but as an observation. Jason rubbed his palms against his jeans. "Well, yeah, I've never had an alien roommate before, and I have never shared living space with a human," Lyra replied softly. "So we are both uncertain. That makes us equal." Her words, calm and steady, eased something inside him. He nodded slowly. "Yeah, equal. That sounds good." The first hour was spent unpacking, or rather Jason unpacking, while Lyra simply placed her one case neatly under her bed. Jason had posters, books, scattered clothes, and a coffee machine he treasured like a lifeline. Lyra, on the other hand, sat gracefully on her bed, watching curiously as he worked. "You surround yourself with many objects," she noted. Jason chuckled. "Yeah, humans like stuff. Makes us feel comfortable, I guess." Lyra tilted her head. "Interesting. On my world, we carry only what we need. Too many objects make the mind restless." Jason looked at his cluttered desk, then at her nearly empty side of the room. For the first time, he wondered if humans were the strange ones. By evening, Jason's nerves had softened. Lyra wasn't frightening. She was calm, polite, and oddly human in her curiosity. She asked questions about everything: the purpose of the microwave, why humans wore shoes indoors, even why Jason sighed so much while unpacking. Jason laughed. "That's just stress. You'll get used to it. Lyra studied him thoughtfully. On my planet, sighing would mean grief. I will remember that for humans it means stress. Jason realized then how careful she was, trying to learn his ways while sharing her own. It wasn't just about living together, it was about trust. That night, Jason lay on his bed staring at the ceiling. He could hear the faint hum of Lyra's breathing across the room. It wasn't loud but rhythmic, like a gentle vibration. He found himself oddly comforted by it. He thought about how nervous he had been, expecting the worst. But now, as he drifted toward sleep, he felt something unexpected. Peace. Lyra was different, yes. Alien in every sense of the word. But she wasn't scary. She wasn't distant. She was just someone far from home, just like him, trying to find her place in a strange world. Jason smiled faintly in the dark. Maybe this year wouldn't be so bad after all. Maybe it would change everything. The first week of living together passed in a blur. Jason slowly adjusted to having Lyra around, though every day brought something strange and new. She was always awake before him, sitting quietly on her bed with her eyes closed, her silver skin catching the morning light. Jason once asked if she was meditating, but she explained it was her way of aligning her inner rhythm with the day. Without it, she said, my thoughts scatter like dust. Jason admired her discipline. He, on the other hand, often rolled out of bed late, hair sticking in every direction, scrambling to find clean clothes before class. Lyra never judged him, but he sometimes caught her watching with a tiny smile, as if humans were an endless source of amusement. Despite their differences, they settled into a routine. Jason cooked instant noodles and taught Lyra how to make scrambled eggs. She, in return, shared small packets of dried fruit from her world, sweet and sharp. Unlike anything Earth grew, things were normal enough, until the seventh night. Jason was stretched out on his bed, scrolling through his phone when Lyra stood up and walked over. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dim dorm light. It is time, she said calmly. Jason blinked, lowering his phone. Time for what? For us to share the bed. Jason sat bolt upright, nearly dropping his phone. Wait, what? Lyra tilted her head, puzzled by his reaction. This is the proper moment. 1 week has passed since we became roommates. Now we strengthen the bond. Jason's mouth went dry. Hold on, what do you mean by share the bed? As in sleep in the same one? Yes, she replied, as though it were the most obvious thing in the universe. In my culture, allies and companions must do this. It shows trust. Without it, you are not truly accepted. Jason's brain felt like it short-circuited. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, completely lost for words. Okay, see, on Earth, people don't usually do that. Not unless they're, close. Lyra's expression shifted, and for the first time, Jason saw something like hurt flash in her glowing eyes. So you refuse? She asked quietly. Jason scrambled for an answer. He hadn't meant to hurt her. He just wasn't prepared for this. It's not that I refuse, he said quickly. It's just unusual for us. People might misunderstand. Lyra's gaze dropped to the floor. Her voice grew soft. On my world, refusing to share sleep is like saying, I do not trust you. I do not wish for closeness. It is an insult, even if unintended. Jason's chest tightened. He hated seeing that disappointment in her eyes. She had traveled across galaxies, left behind everything familiar, and now she was asking for something that, to her, was simple. And here he was, too human to understand. He swallowed hard. I don't want you to think I don't trust you. Lyra looked up again, hope flickering in her gaze. Then you will accept? Jason hesitated only a second longer before nodding. Yeah, I'll try, just don't laugh if I'm awkward, okay? Lyra's lips curved into a small, relieved smile. I will not laugh. This is sacred to me. That night, Jason felt like his entire world had tilted sideways. The bed was not built for two, especially not for someone as tall as Lyra. They had to lie close, shoulder to shoulder. Jason's heart hammered in his chest, and he struggled to find a position that didn't feel too intimate. Lyra, however, lay perfectly still, calm and relaxed. You are tense, she observed. Of course I'm tense, Jason muttered. This is new. You will adjust, Lyra said gently. Focus on breathing. Let your body rest. Jason tried, though every nerve screamed that he was too close, too warm, too aware of the alien beside him. But then something strange happened. Lyra's body radiated warmth, not uncomfortably hot, but steady, like lying near a gentle fire. The tension in Jason's muscles began to ease. Her breathing was slow and even, and without meaning to, Jason's matched hers. Minutes stretched into an hour. His thoughts, usually restless at night, began to quiet. For the first time in weeks, he didn't think about homework or deadlines or what people thought of him. He just existed in that moment next to her. And before he realized it, sleep pulled him under. Jason woke the next morning in shock. Not because Lyra was still there, he had expected that, but because he had slept better than he had in months. He usually tossed and turned, sometimes waking up from half-forgotten dreams, but last night had been different. He had fallen asleep fast, stayed asleep, and now felt strangely refreshed. Lyra sat cross-legged on her side of the bed, eyes closed in her usual morning ritual. When she noticed he was awake, she opened them and gave a small nod. "You slept well?" she said simply. Jason rubbed his eyes. "Yes, I actually did. This is the way of my people," Lyra explained. "Sharing sleep creates harmony. Your body feels safe, so it rests." "Now you see why it is important." Jason stared at her, speechless for a moment. He wanted to argue, to say it was just a coincidence. But deep down, he knew she was right. Last night hadn't been normal. It had been healing. He leaned back against the wall, exhaling slowly. "I guess. Maybe humans could learn a thing or two from you guys." Lyra smiled softly, and in that moment, Jason felt the tension between them dissolve. Later that day, as Jason walked across campus, he caught himself remembering her words. Sharing sleep creates harmony. It sounded ridiculous, almost childish, if he tried to explain it to someone else. His friends would laugh. They'd never understand, but Jason did. He had lived it. And though part of him still felt awkward, another part couldn't help but wonder, what if this tradition wasn't just for Lyra's people? What if it was something every lonely human secretly needed too? That night, when Lyra quietly moved toward his bed again, Jason didn't hesitate. He just lifted the blanket and made space for her, and this time he wasn't nervous. He was curious about what else her traditions might teach him. The second night came faster than Jason expected. All day long, he couldn't stop thinking about what had happened before, how easily he had fallen asleep next to Lyra, how peaceful it had felt. It still didn't make sense to him. Normally he tossed and turned, his mind racing with deadlines, worries, and regrets. But with her beside him, all of that had melted away. He told himself it was probably just exhaustion, a coincidence. Still, as the sun went down and the dorm room grew quiet, his heart beat a little faster. He knew what was coming. Lyra moved with her usual calmness. She closed the sleek case she kept under her bed, dimmed the room lights, and sat gracefully at the edge of Jason's mattress. She looked at him with her glowing silver eyes, waiting. She didn't ask if he was ready. She didn't have to. Jason lifted the blanket silently, making space. Lyra lay down beside him, her movements smooth, almost ceremonial. The bed was small, forcing them to be close. Jason's shoulder brushed against hers, and he felt the warmth radiating from her skin, steady and soothing. He stared at the ceiling, every nerve in his body alive. "Your breathing is fast," Lyra observed quietly. Jason laughed nervously. "Well, yeah, this is still new for me." "It will not always feel new," she said, her voice low and calm. "In time, you will find it natural." Jason turned his head slightly, studying her profile in the dim light. Her silver hair shimmered faintly, and her eyes reflected the glow of the room like twin moons. She looked completely at peace, as if sharing a bed with a near stranger was the most ordinary thing in the universe. Jason wished he could feel that calm. Instead, his thoughts ran wild. What if someone found out? What if people misunderstood? What if she misread his nervousness as rejection? But then he remembered the hurt in her eyes the night he had almost refused. He didn't want to see that again. He forced himself to breathe slowly, matching her rhythm. Minutes passed. The silence in the room wasn't heavy. It was soft, almost comforting. Jason could hear her breathing, steady, gentle. The sound soothed him more than he wanted to admit. After a while, Lyra spoke again, her voice almost like a whisper. "Where I come from, the first night of shared sleep is important. It tells us if two souls can rest in harmony. If they cannot, it is a sign the bond will not last." Jason frowned. "And what happens if they can't?" Lyra turned her head toward him, her silver eyes meeting his. Then they part ways. Better to separate early than to live in constant unrest. Jason swallowed hard. There was weight in her words. It wasn't just a tradition to her, it was a test. He realized she wasn't only sharing a bed for comfort, she was testing if they could truly be companions. Well, Jason said softly, I guess we passed the test. I mean, I actually slept better than I have in months. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. Then our bond is true. Jason's chest tightened. He didn't fully understand what that meant, but he knew it was important to her. The room grew quieter as the night deepened. Jason shifted slightly, trying to get comfortable in the cramped bed. His arm brushed against hers and he froze. But Lyra didn't move away. Instead, she placed her hand lightly on his forearm, a simple touch, gentle but deliberate. Jason's heart pounded. Is this okay? He whispered. Yes, Lyra said calmly. It helps me know you are real, that I am not alone. Her words sank deep into him. He realized then that this wasn't about tradition alone. She was far from home in a world full of strangers, surrounded by a culture she barely understood. Sharing a bed wasn't just a ritual for her. It was a way to fight loneliness. Jason's throat felt tight. He had spent so much time worrying about how strange it felt for him. He hadn't thought about how much it meant for her. Yeah, he whispered back. You're not alone. Lyra closed her eyes, her hand still resting lightly against his arm. And slowly, Jason let himself relax. As sleep pulled at him, Jason drifted into dreams. This time the dreams weren't chaotic or stressful. Instead, he dreamed of stars, bright, endless stars stretching across a dark sky. In the dream, Lyra stood beside him, her silver eyes glowing, pointing out constellations he had never seen. When Jason woke, the morning light was creeping through the window. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then he felt the warmth beside him. Lyra was still asleep, her breathing steady, her hand still lightly touching his arm. Jason didn't move. He just lay there, watching the sunlight catch in her silver hair. For the first time in years, he didn't feel that heavy weight in his chest when he woke up. No dread of the day ahead. No crushing loneliness, just quiet. Just peace. He realized then how strange and powerful her tradition really was. It wasn't about romance. It wasn't about anything physical. It was about trust, closeness, and the unspoken comfort of knowing someone was there. And Jason couldn't deny it. He liked it. Later that morning, as they sat across from each other eating breakfast, Jason broke the silence. Hey, Lyra, yes? Thanks for last night. He scratched his neck, feeling awkward. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but I feel better. Like really better? Lyra looked at him with calm eyes, then gave a small nod. That is the gift of our tradition. It heals more than the body. It heals the heart. Jason let out a small laugh. Yeah, I think I needed that more than I realized. Lyra tilted her head, studying him for a moment. Then she said softly, and I needed it too. Jason didn't reply right away. But inside he felt something shift. A quiet understanding. A bond he hadn't expected to form. This wasn't just about surviving college anymore. This was about something bigger, something he was only beginning to understand. That night, when Lyra moved toward his bed again, Jason didn't hesitate at all. He just lifted the blanket, smiling faintly. And when she lay down beside him, her hand once again resting lightly against his arm, Jason thought, maybe this tradition wasn't strange at all. Maybe it was exactly what both of them needed. By the third week, Jason and Lyra had fallen into a rhythm. Every night she joined him in his bed, and every morning they woke up rested and strangely in sync. What had once felt awkward now felt natural. Jason no longer hesitated. He simply lifted the blanket, and she slid in beside him with quiet grace. But while the tradition made sense inside their little dorm room, the outside world began to notice. It started with small whispers in the cafeteria. Jason would walk in with Lyra, carrying trays of food, and he'd hear snickers from a nearby table. Look, there goes Carter and his alien girlfriend. She's probably sleeping in his bed every night. Jason froze the first time he heard it. He wanted to shout back that it wasn't like that it was just her tradition, something sacred. But the words stuck in his throat. Humans didn't understand. To them, two people sharing a bed could only mean one thing. And soon the whispers turned into teasing. One afternoon, as Jason sat in the library trying to study, two of his classmates approached. They weren't close friends, more like casual acquaintances. "So," one of them said with a smirk, "what's it like? Sleeping with an alien must be out of this world." The other laughed loudly, drawing stares from people nearby. Jason's face burned red. He clenched his fists, but he forced himself to stay calm. "It's not like that," he said sharply. "It's her tradition. It's cultural." "Oh, sure," the first one said, grinning. "That's what they all say." Jason shoved his books into his bag and left before he said something he'd regret. But their laughter followed him out of the library, sticking to him like glue. That night, Jason lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Lyra slid in beside him as usual, her warmth steady and comforting. But his mind was restless, she noticed instantly. "Something troubles you." Jason turned his head. Her silver eyes glowed softly in the dark, watching him. He hesitated before answering. "People are talking about us," Lyra frowned slightly. "What do they say?" Jason swallowed hard. "They think this tradition means something else. Something romantic. Or worse, they think I'm lying about it being cultural." For a moment, Lyra was silent. Then she said softly, "Do humans always mock what they do not understand?" Jason sighed. "Pretty much." Her expression dimmed, her glowing eyes lowering toward the blanket. "I told you, for my people this is sacred. It is about trust, not desire. But if your kind cannot see that..." She trailed off, her voice quiet and heavy. Jason's chest ached. He hated seeing her look that way. Hurt, disappointed, misunderstood. "I know," he said quickly. "I get it. I don't care what they say. I know what it really means." Lyra looked at him again, searching his face. "Do you truly not care?"
"Even if they laugh at you?"
Jason hesitated. He wanted to say yes without doubt, but the truth was more complicated. He did care. It hurt hearing the whispers, the jokes, the mocking tone. But when he looked at her, lying beside him with that fragile hope in her eyes, he knew one thing with certainty. "I care more about what you think than what they think," he said firmly. For the first time that night, her expression softened. She reached out, resting her hand lightly against his arm as she always did. "Then their words cannot harm us." Jason let out a slow breath, tension easing from his chest. "Yeah, you're right." Still, the pressure outside continued to grow. Every day, Jason heard more whispers, more laughter behind his back. Some people even looked at Lyra with suspicion, as though she had manipulated him somehow. One evening, Jason's friend Mark pulled him aside. Mark was one of the few people Jason actually hung out with before Lyra arrived. "Listen, man," Mark said awkwardly, scratching the back of his neck. "People are saying stuff about you and the alien. I mean, is it true? Are you know?" Jason clenched his jaw. "No, we're not. It's her tradition. That's all," Mark frowned. "I don't know, dude. It sounds weird. People are gonna think you're crazy." Jason's voice grew sharper. "Then let them. I don't care." Mark raised his hands defensively. "Hey, I'm just looking out for you." Jason walked away, anger burning in his chest. For once he realized Mark wasn't really looking out for him. He was looking out for his own comfort, his own reputation. Back in the dorm, Jason slammed his bag down harder than he meant to. Lyra looked up from her desk, concern flickering across her face. "They mocked you again," she said quietly. Jason sat heavily on the bed, burying his face in his hands. "Yeah, they don't get it. They don't even want to get it. And I'm sick of it." Lyra stood slowly, crossing the small space to sit beside him. She didn't touch him at first, just sat close, her presence steady and grounding. After a moment, she spoke softly. "When I left my home, I knew it would be hard. I knew humans would not understand our ways. But I hoped maybe one of you would." Jason lifted his head, meeting her glowing eyes. I understand. Maybe not everything, but I'm trying. And that has to count for something." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "It does. It means more than you know." Jason exhaled slowly, his anger fading into something softer. He realized then that all the teasing, all the whispers didn't matter nearly as much as the bond they were building. He reached out, placing his hand gently over hers. "They can laugh all they want. But I'm not giving this up." Lyra's eyes shimmered with quiet gratitude. She squeezed his hand lightly, then whispered, "Then you are stronger than you think." That night, as they lay down together, Jason felt a new sense of resolve. The world outside might laugh, mock, or misunderstand. But here in this small dorm room, he knew the truth. Sharing a bed wasn't strange. It wasn't shameful. It was trust. It was peace. And he wasn't about to let go of that, no matter what anyone said. Jason sat at the edge of his desk, staring at the textbooks piled high like a mountain he could never climb. His mind wasn't on the formulas or the essays. It was on the voices of the students he had heard earlier that day. Yeah, he sleeps with her every night. Don't believe that tradition stuff. It's just an excuse. Humans and aliens. Disgusting. It's wrong. Bet he's lying about what really happens. The laughter still echoed in his head, each word cutting deeper than he wanted to admit. Lyra noticed, of course. She always noticed. She walked quietly into the room, her silver eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She tilted her head, her long hair shifting like strands of liquid crystal. "You are troubled," she said softly. Jason tried to smile, but it broke halfway. "It's nothing. Just people talking." But Lyra didn't believe him. She never did. "Your people wound with words. I can feel it in you. Their whispers are heavy." Jason sighed, leaning back in his chair. He wanted to brush it off, pretend it didn't matter. But the truth was, it mattered too much. He wasn't used to being the center of attention, and now it felt like the whole campus was staring, judging, laughing. He looked at Lyra. She sat cross-legged on the bed, watching him with quiet patience. She didn't press, but her silence pulled at him more than questions ever could. Finally, Jason broke. They think what we do is wrong. That us sharing a bed is," his voice cracked. He couldn't even finish. Lyra's glow dimmed. She lowered her gaze, and for a moment Jason thought she might actually be ashamed. But then she spoke, voice steady, though tinged with sadness. "I knew this would come. Humans fear what they do not understand." Jason's chest tightened. He hated seeing her like this, her strong, calm self shaken by doubt. "I don't want you to think I regret it. I don't, it's just hard." Lyra's eyes lifted to his, and he could see the weight she carried. "Do you know why my people do this? Why we share sleep with those we call family or ally?" Jason hesitated. "Because it's tradition?" Lyra shook her head slowly. "Tradition is only the shell. The truth lies deeper." She stood and walked toward him, every movement graceful, almost fragile. She sat on the floor beside his chair, looking up at him with those silver eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies. "When my people first traveled the stars," she began, her voice low and filled with memory, "we met another race. We thought they were kind. We welcomed them, opened our homes, our hearts. But while we slept, they betrayed us. They poisoned our food, burned our shelters, and slaughtered our children. We learned then that sleep is not only rest, it is surrender. To share sleep is to give another your unguarded self." Jason's throat tightened. He leaned forward, listening, every word striking deeper than the last. "After that, we made a vow," Lyra continued. "Never again would we give trust lightly. We made it our law, our way. To lie beside another, to share the night. It became our proof. Proof that fear could be defeated by trust. Proof that not all would betray." Her voice cracked just slightly as she whispered, "When I asked you to share your bed, it was not to dishonor you. It was to honor you more deeply than words could." Jason's heart ached. The weight of what she said, the history behind it, was heavier than any rumor, any laughter. He finally understood it wasn't silly. It wasn't strange. It was survival, pain, and hope woven into one, and she had chosen him. Jason reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and rested it over hers. "Lyra, I didn't know. I'm sorry I doubted. He swallowed hard. "I don't care what people think. You're my friend, more than a friend. And I'd choose to share the bed with you 1,000 times over." Lyra blinked, and for the first time since he'd met her, tears shimmered at the edge of her eyes. They didn't fall, but they glowed like tiny stars, brighter than the silver of her irises. "You speak with truth. That is rare. My people would honor you greatly for these words." The tension inside Jason broke, and he let out a shaky laugh. "Well, they don't exactly give out medals here for being a decent roommate." Lyra tilted her head, her lips curving into a small, radiant smile. "Then perhaps they should." That night, when they lay down to sleep, the silence between them was no longer heavy. It was gentle, warm. Jason could feel the steady hum of her presence beside him. And for once, he didn't think about the whispers, the laughter, the judgment. He thought about her story, about the unimaginable pain her people carried, and the courage it took to create a tradition that turned fear into trust. As Lyra rested her hand lightly on his arm, a gesture that had once made him nervous but now felt like an anchor, Jason whispered into the quiet, "I trust you, Lyra, always." Lyra's voice, soft as the night, answered, "And I you." Jason closed his eyes, the weight of the world lifting from his chest. He finally understood the truth. It didn't matter what anyone else thought. What mattered was the bond they had built. A bond forged not in fire or blood, but in something far more human. In trust. And as he drifted to sleep, Jason realized something that made his heart ache in a strange, beautiful way. Maybe humanity had been missing something all along. Maybe what they called strange was exactly what they needed. The days after Lyra told her truth felt lighter for Jason. But the world outside their small room was not so kind. Whispers didn't stop. They grew sharper, more poisonous. Some laughed when he passed in the cafeteria. Others muttered cruel words just loud enough for him to hear. Alien lover, creep, freak. Jason tried to ignore them. He tried to bury himself in studies and books, in the quiet comfort of the room he shared with Lyra. But poison seeps deep, and soon it began to wear him down. Lyra noticed every crack in his mask. She always did. One evening, when Jason slammed his textbook shut with a heavy sigh, she spoke softly from her bed. "They wound you again, don't they?" Jason rubbed his face with his hands. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, and frustration burned in his chest. "Yeah, and I'm sick of it. Why do they care? Why do they even look at us? It's none of their business." Lyra tilted her head, her silver eyes calm but heavy. They fear what they don't understand. And when fear is strong, it changes into cruelty. Jason clenched his fists. It's stupid. They act like us sharing a bed is dirty or wrong. But it's not. It's... He stopped, his throat tightening. Lyra leaned forward, her voice firm yet gentle. "It is trust. Nothing more. Nothing less. And trust is never wrong." Her words were steady, but Jason felt a storm inside himself. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to be as calm as she was. But humans were not like her people. Humans were messy. They gossiped, they judged, they punished what they didn't understand. The breaking point came a week later. Jason was walking back from class when 3 students stepped in front of him. He recognized them, loudmouths who loved mocking him when they thought Lyra wasn't around. "Well, if it isn't the alien's pet," one sneered. "Tell us, man," another laughed. "What's it like? She got extra arms we don't see." They all roared with laughter, shoving him lightly as if he was nothing. Jason felt his chest burn with shame and rage. He wanted to walk away. He wanted to be above it. But when one of them said, "Bet she only sleeps next to you because no one else would take her," Jason snapped. His fist flew before he thought. The punch landed and the laughter stopped. But then came shouting, shoving, chaos. By the time it was over, Jason's lip was bleeding and his knuckles ached. He stumbled back to the dorm room, shoulders heavy, heart heavier. Lyra was there, waiting. The moment she saw him, her glow dimmed. What happened? Her voice was sharp with worry. Jason dropped into the chair, covering his face. "I lost it, Lyra. I hit one of them. I couldn't take it anymore." Lyra knelt beside him, her hands hovering over his bruised knuckles but not touching, as if afraid to break him further. "Jason, why?" His voice cracked as he whispered, "Because they don't get it. They don't understand you. They don't understand us. And I'm so tired of it." Silence hung between them. Then Lyra spoke, her voice trembling with emotion. "Do you think their words matter more than ours? More than the bond we share?" Jason lifted his head, meeting her glowing eyes. "I don't want you to be hurt because of me." Her hand finally touched his, light as a feather. "I am not hurt by you. I am honored by you. You stood for me when others mocked." "That is strength." Jason's throat tightened. "But it doesn't feel like strength. It feels like I'm drowning." Lyra's gaze softened. She rose, pulling him gently toward the bed. "Then let me carry you as you have carried me." That night, Jason didn't just lie beside her. He collapsed into her arms, broken and exhausted. For once, he didn't pretend to be strong. Lyra wrapped her arms around him, holding him like a shield, like a promise. "You are not alone," she whispered against his hair. "You will never be alone." Jason buried his face against her shoulder, the heat of her body grounding him. He felt the world's weight slowly ease, as if her presence was the only anchor keeping him from sinking. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't heavy this time, it was healing. Jason realized something then. The whispers, the laughter, the cruelty, none of it truly mattered. What mattered was this moment, this bond, this trust that no rumor could break. As sleep pulled at his tired eyes, Jason whispered into the quiet, "You're my family, Lyra." Her arms tightened around him, her voice trembling but full of light. "And you are mine." For the first time since the cruelty began, Jason slept without fear, without shame. He didn't dream of fists or laughter. He dreamed of stars, glowing silver, wrapped in the warmth of a friend who trusted him with her whole heart. And when he woke, he knew something with unshakable certainty. No rumor. No judgment. No cruelty. Nothing could take that away. Finals week arrived like a storm. Jason's desk was buried in books, his eyes heavy from sleepless nights. He tried to push himself, reading late into the night, but the words blurred and the pressure crushed him. No matter how hard he studied, the fear remained. Fear of failing, fear of disappointing, fear of not being enough. One evening, after hours of staring at notes he couldn't understand, Jason slammed his pencil down. His chest was tight, his hands shaking. "I can't do this," he whispered to himself, voice breaking. "I'm going to fail." Lyra, who had been sitting quietly on her bed, lifted her head. The silver glow in her eyes softened with worry. She crossed the room and crouched beside him, her voice calm but steady. "Jason, you have faced harder things than this. Why do you doubt yourself now?" Jason shook his head, hiding his face in his hands. "Because I'm tired. Because everyone expects me to fail. Because maybe they're right." His voice cracked, and the words slipped out before he could stop them. "I'm not strong like you." Lyra's eyes widened, and she reached out, placing her warm hand on his shoulder. "You are wrong," she said firmly, her voice trembling with emotion. "Do you not see? Strength is not only in the body, it is in the heart. You carried my trust even when the world mocked you. You stood when you wanted to break. That is strength greater than any I have seen." Jason swallowed hard, his throat aching. Her words wrapped around him like a blanket, but the storm inside still raged. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to see himself the way she saw him. But all he felt was small, fragile, lost. Lyra seemed to sense it. She stood and pulled him gently toward the bed. "Come," she said softly. "Sleep. Your mind cannot fight when it is drowning in exhaustion." Jason resisted at first. "I don't have time." But Lyra silenced him with a look. Her silver eyes glowed brighter, filled with quiet determination. "Trust me, Jason. Just this once, let me carry you." Something in her voice broke through his resistance. He let her guide him to the bed, where she pulled him close, wrapping her arms around him. The warmth of her body was steady, unshakable, like the sun after a storm. At first, Jason's mind still spun with panic. What if he failed? What if everything collapsed? But then he felt the steady rhythm of her breathing, the way her hand rested lightly on his arm, grounding him. Slowly his heart began to calm. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice shaking. "What if I'm not enough?" Lyra tightened her hold, her voice gentle but firm. "You are enough. You have always been enough. Even if the world does not see it, I do. And I will never stop." Tears filled Jason's eyes, hot and heavy. He buried his face against her shoulder, letting the sobs he had been holding back finally break free. Lyra said nothing more. She simply held him, her presence stronger than any words. For the first time, Jason allowed himself to be vulnerable, completely and openly. And instead of weakness, he felt something else. He felt safe. When he finally drifted into sleep, it wasn't the restless, haunted sleep of the past weeks. It was deep, healing, wrapped in the warmth of someone who saw him, who believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. The next morning, Jason woke with sunlight on his face. Lyra was still beside him, her silver eyes closed, her breathing soft and steady. For a moment, he just watched her, realizing how much had changed since she first entered his life. She wasn't just his roommate anymore. She wasn't just an alien with strange traditions. She was family. She was home. Jason sat up quietly, careful not to wake her, and something inside him felt different. The weight wasn't gone, but it was lighter, because he wasn't carrying it alone anymore. When Lyra stirred awake,